We all know that China had 1.3 billion people, but almost 95% of the people owns a phone, and half of them already becomes a smartphone, of course, thanks to companies such as Huawei, Xiaomi, and other local Chinese brands. They're able to push down the price of the smartphones. So with the smartphones and promotion of the online shopping, and I think Alibaba sort of like take off, and over these few years, so by 2015, you know, that's already had more than 90 billion RMB. So I think that this e-commerce, thanks to these all different factors, plus the first mover advantage for Alibaba, they now become a dominant force. And that certainly is going to continue, because online shopping, despite it's huge, but if you look at the total consumption, especially just all kind of online shopping that this compared with the US, for example, if you look at US, all the e-commerce, roughly about 15 to 18% of the total retailing consumptions, while in China, about only 10 to 12%. So if you look at US as an example, then you still have room to grow. Secondly, that the single stay obviously is huge. They expect this year is going to over 100 billions, probably like 120 billions. 1 day of sales only is about 3% of the total e-commerce online sales. 3% is roughly about 2 weeks of the sales compared with the ordinary days. So, even though it's a huge number, but it's still a small drop of the bucket. Still quite a room to grow. And that is good news for Alibaba, obviously. Based on last year's 3% is the total all involved in the November 11th. But this year, obviously, we know not just Alibaba, almost everybody, including offline, the brick and mortar stores, they all take advantage of this November 11th. So I think the scale of this single stay is no longer just Alibaba's exclusive phenomena in the future to come. If you think about it, still half of a country's people live in the countryside, not in the cities. And those people that TV and mobile phone have become the major means for them to get information, entertainment, whatnot. So they certainly wanted to get everybody engaged and aware of this, the single stays events. Obviously, it's a collective effort from everybody, and I think, given the fact that the mobile shopping is coming to stay and is going to be much bigger, especially for people who live in the countryside, the rural area, they don't have the stores to visit. Unlike the city folks, they can go to the local shops. So the online shopping will become probably the only means for them to get their hands on something they usually cannot get, because that now on the single stay, a lot of discounts are there, and they are not as wealthy as the city folks. So it will be certainly a big force for all the e-commerce to rely on this. The rural areas, they are the growth points. And this is why you see the JD or Alibaba, they have been trying very hard to promote the e-commerce and online shopping to the rural areas. That is become the fact. So I think all these promotions is certainly going to make today's single stay more well recognized, and people will just anticipate it, and probably will shop much more than used to be. So some of the projections saying that this year it could be as high as 120 billion to 140 billion. So we'll wait and see. JD, as you all know, that they are practically is more like Amazon.com's copycat. Well, I think the statistics show that they are like 1/3 of the sort of the share in terms of the online e-commerce vis-a-vis Alibaba's Taobao and Tmall. They are buy low, sell high. They would buy things from the manufacturers and resell to consumers. So one of the selling points for JD.com saying that we will guarantee the product you buy will be real, genuine. nothing fake. Of course, there are stories saying that even for them has some fake products too. So I think consumers pretty much had come to the terms that if you really want to buy something you feel you can trust and is real, you probably go for the JD.com. While if you buy something just casually and a low cost, and then if you made a mistake, it's not going to kill you, you might want to try the Alibaba's websites. So I think that these two different models would coexist, and JD.com trying very hard to try to develop their own logistics, shipping, and try to have overnight shipping, etc. And so if you wanted something expedite, and just like Amazon.com that you want overnight, etc., then JD certainly is the company you want to deal with. So I think these two will coexist, but the scale of Alibaba is going to be much bigger. Thanks to their Alipay system, you all know that they had this third-party payment system, Alipay, and which is quite powerful. Now that it's big enough to penetrate even the offline stores. Every shops in China, big cities, you don't even have to use credit card anymore. You just take out your Alipay. So this big data allow the Alibaba has some advantage. For example, for this single days event, it's not just waiting on a single day. In fact, most of the merchants participated. They already opened their sales going on about a week already, and most of the consumer can just start to browse and put in the shopping basket, although they are not committed just yet. But by putting in the basket, which means that you can indicate it to the merchants what you like. And so Alibaba can take advantage of that, and using this big data to tell the merchants saying what kind of things is going to sell better than the others. And so merchants have a week off, a week in advance or even more, start to adjust their supply chains, and which one is going to make better, to make more, and which one is going to make less. So I think this big data with the Alipay system, not just online, also offline, giving the Alibaba has advantage over JD.com, because as you know, JD.com has the power to know what's the offline sales informations. So I think that in the long run, if you believe that big data is going to be the major force, then I would still bet on Alibaba is going to prevail much bigger than JD.com. Amazon.com in US, the Amazon.com, their cloud service is actually bigger than their e-commerce, and I think it's probably going to be true for Alibaba. They have penetrated in all dimensions of the consumers' lives. They don't just stay in the e-commerce, and I told you that about the Alipay is becomes into the finance sector, and now they are trying to use their power to penetrate our lives in terms of entertainment. For example, Alibaba also into the movie makings, and they also into the cloud, into the logistics, and into the education, medicines. So every corners of our day-to-day life, they have their presence over there, and they into the IP, the movie, the games, etc. So I think their idea is going to be, so long as that we need the lives in every dimension, they want to be there. And given the big data, they would know everything about us, and eventually data matters more than anything. It's just like you would that tomorrow's elections, right? That if you have a CNN poll, what's going on, you can adjust and make the big data becomes the guidance of your next move. And because they can penetrate in every dimension, so all the merchants, they had to kowtow to this big data and then get the information from Alibaba. So it is more like a big brother in disguise, and it's kind of scary, but I think that's what they are thinking about. This sensational sales in the past, like 50% discounts, and then suddenly everybody get engaged. So economics 101 saying that if the price drop by half, certainly are going to make people interested and buy. And you see that in the United States too, that Thanksgiving's weekend and Black Friday and the Cyber Monday, you still generate a lot of interest from the like in U.S. citizens. So same thing here in China. It's just that Chinese, in some sense, still quite sensitive in price, and the discount itself is quite lucrative, and that's why that stocking up. So I would say that most of people who go for it, there are two types. One is for items you can stock up, right? Because you can just say, for example, your shampoos or detergents or whatnot, you can just put in somewhere in the room. You have a price, why not? The other is the impulsive buy, because you probably don't buy it, but now, hey, if it's 50% discounts, why not? And so that there are lots of impulsive buy there, and certainly not good news, because that according to last year's number, they say it could be as high as like 40 to 50% returns after you buy it. Just think about the waste of energy, and you produce something, you send it to the consumers, and half of them return it to you. And then I just checked with one of my students, the business. They are pure online selling for women fashions. They told me that in the normal days, they about 15 to 18% of that return. They expect on the single stay would be 25-ish. So 1 out of 4 that will be returned. But the stake is pretty high, and I asked about how much of a sales generated from the single stay. They say it's about 16% of the total annual sales. Just single day, you generate 16%. But what I'm trying to say is that because of this hype of this discount, many consumers came from nowhere, and then they're saying the cost is low. I can just buy, and if I don't like it, I return. Nothing harm about it. So from the sort of total energy and resources wasted in this kind of back and forth, and think about how many boxes and a cardboard boxes, plastics created, and then just think about the inventory. Suddenly that amounted to like 30-40% of the returns. You had to try to get rid of them through other means, outlet malls or some other websites. So to me, I think this is certainly a big event, but it's prison's dilemma for many of the merchants. They don't get engaged. They were sort of been left out, but they get engaged, then they don't necessarily make much of money out of it. And that's something is very this aspect probably not much of people talk about it, but in my view that certain of these sales is enough. It should be a supplement to the day-to-day sales, but if it becomes major events and then dictate and make this becomes all the resources put it there, then will be not healthy at all. If you get engaged, you have to let me know that a price, and they have a strict rule. For example, they say the price cannot be higher than you past X months of the lowest price for their product. For example, they say you want to sell this XYZ, and in the 3 months ahead, you set the price, you sold it before for the single stay, you must be lower than that price. And then after the single stay, the X months of from now on, you cannot sell anything lower than this price. So in essence, they want to guarantee the price you set on a single stay, it will be the lowest before and after. So that means that the consumer will not feel cheated, right? That makes sense. But if that is the rule, that means what? That means these merchants, they had to select products carefully. They don't want to just lose money. That doesn't make sense. The idea is try to use that to attract attentions from the consumer they may not have attracted before. But if everybody want to do that, and the only limited space in Alibaba and Tmall and Taobao's website, you had to pay a hefty price to make yourself on the top, right? And then because you want to make sure that you are on the top, then this is why I just mentioned about the farm clicking. You just engage someone to fake transaction to make it as if you are the hot cakes, and then everybody wants it. And this is why that the whole thing is skewed to and create this kind of incentive for cheating and fraud. And consumer, yes, you might ended up buying something cheaper, but as I mentioned, some of them just saying a low cost of trying, and this is why it amounts to high returns. And it certainly bring the logistic company happy. They have suddenly surge of a business, but the people get engaged, shipping, energy, cost and fuel. So it suddenly create lots of the negative effect for society. The garbage created from the boxes, and the all the this running around of people, and the energy loss, etc. And so I think that nobody really tried to quantify what is the cost and benefits of this whole event, and there will be interesting research subject. Try to anticipate the sales of the Singles Day. Everybody need to plan ahead, right? And then and we are not God. We don't know exactly what item it will be hot sales and what would be just ignored. So a lot of this wasted energy and wasted resources, and but who is going to gain the most? Of course, Alibaba, because everybody flock into his website, and all the merchants need information from him, and they try to pay for the top spots, and that Alibaba certainly welcome the more will get engaged, and they'll get the benefits. So it is something that truly the only winner in my view is Alibaba. We generate all the sales data. We became one of their data points, and the more I get engaged, the more he knew about the Alibaba know about the consumer, and the more they can sell this information to the other the people who in their websites, or the merchants, the team or whatnot. So everybody will becomes hijacked by the Alibaba.